The morning shift on the Meridian's Hope started like any other, with recycled coffee that tasted like battery acid and the gentle hum of the fusion drive pushing them through the outer rim. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her cramped quarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing fragments of dead languages. She'd been a xenolinguist for 8 years, cataloging the remnants of extinct civilizations, but nothing had prepared her for what she'd discovered 3 hours ago. Her hands trembled as she ran the translation algorithm again. The same message appeared, cold and urgent in a dozen ancient dialects. She saved the file and made her way to the bridge, the corridors of the old freighter creaking around her like the bones of some massive creature. Captain Marcus Webb stood at the forward viewport, his weathered face illuminated by the distant stars. At 42 he'd spent half his life in space, running cargo between the outer colonies and Earth. Elena had joined his crew 6 months ago, and despite his gruff exterior, she'd come to admire the quiet strength in his gray eyes. "Captain, we need to talk," Elena said, her voice tight. Marcus turned, immediately reading the tension in her posture. "The beacon? I've translated it." She pulled up her tablet, projecting the message into the air between them. "It's a warning, Marcus. A very specific warning." He read in silence, his jaw tightening with each line. The message spoke of the Krillian Collective, a vast empire that had swept through this region of space 3,000 years ago. The ancients who'd built the beacon had barely survived the encounter, leaving warnings scattered across dead worlds. "They're coming back," Elena whispered. "The beacon detected their signature 2 weeks ago. They'll reach human space in less than a month." Marcus closed his eyes. "How many ships?" "The beacon estimates over 500 capital vessels." "Marcus, we're not ready for this. Earth doesn't even know they exist. We need to get this information back home." He activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We're changing course. Plot a direct route to Earth, maximum burn." Elena grabbed his arm. "Wait. There's more." She pulled up another section of the translation. "The ancients left more than warnings. They left coordinates to something they called the last gift, some kind of weapon or defense system. It's in the Kuiper Belt, near Pluto. That's 3 weeks in the opposite direction from Earth," Marcus said. "If this collective is really coming, we don't have time to chase ghosts. And if we reach Earth with just a warning? What then?" Elena stepped closer, her dark eyes searching his face. "We'll tell them an ancient enemy is coming with hundreds of ships, and Earth's defense fleet barely has 50 vessels. They'll need every advantage they can get." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Somewhere along the months of cramped quarters and shared meals, something had shifted between them. It had started with late-night conversations about dead civilizations and evolved into something neither of them wanted to name, something that made moments like this hurt more than they should. "You're asking me to risk my crew on a maybe," he said quietly. "I'm asking you to give Earth a chance." She didn't move away. "Marcus, I've spent my entire career studying species that didn't survive. Species that ignored warnings, that didn't prepare. I don't want humans to become another entry in some future archaeologist's database." The bridge was silent except for the steady pulse of the engines. Marcus thought about his daughter on Mars, about the millions of people spread across human space who had no idea what was coming. He thought about Elena, brilliant and passionate, standing close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. "Chin," he called to his navigator. "Plot a course for the Kuiper Belt. And send a tight beam message to Earth Defense Command. Encrypt it with everything we've got." Elena's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Marcus turned back to the viewport. "If you're wrong about this weapon, we'll be too late to warn anyone properly. If you're right, we might not survive finding it." "Then I guess we'd better make the time count," Elena said softly. He glanced at her, and for just a moment, the weight of command and fear lifted. "Yeah," he said. "I guess we better." As the Meridian's Hope changed course and accelerated toward the outer darkness, neither of them knew they were about to discover humanity's greatest secret, one that would change everything they thought they knew about their species' place in the galaxy. The war room in Geneva smelled like strong coffee and desperation. Ambassador James Okonkwo loosened his tie as he studied the holographic display showing the Krillian fleet's projected path. 20 years in diplomatic service, and nothing had prepared him for this. "They'll reach Mars in 18 days, Dr. Yuki Tanaka said from across the table. She hadn't looked at him directly since entering the room. 5 years since their engagement ended, since he'd chosen his career over their relationship, and the distance between them still ached like a fresh wound. "Can we negotiate?" James asked the assembled officers and scientists. General Morrison shook his head. Every species the Krillians encountered either submitted or died. There's no record of successful negotiation in any of the Vex archives that the Meridian's hope brought back. James studied the data streaming across multiple displays. The Vex had left detailed records of their war with the Krillians, and none of it was encouraging. The Krillians didn't conquer for resources or territory. They conquered because it was their nature, their culture, their entire identity as a species. What about the weapon? He asked. The quantum cascade array. Can we deploy it in time? Dr. Yuki Tanaka finally met his eyes. Her expression was guarded, professional, but James could see the fear beneath it. They'd worked together before, back when they were engaged, back when he'd thought he could balance love and ambition. He'd been wrong. We have options they don't know about, Yuki said carefully. But we need to buy time for the array to charge. It's connected to the sun now, but it needs 72 hours minimum to reach operational capacity. And the Krillians will be here in 18 days, James finished. Which means we need to delay them somehow. That's your department? General Morrison said. You're the diplomat. Talk to them. Stall them. Give us the time we need. After the meeting dispersed, James found himself alone with Yuki in the observation room overlooking Lake Geneva. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of amber and gold. It reminded him of evenings they'd spent together, planning a future that never materialized. You were right, James said quietly. About everything. I should have listened. Yuki didn't turn from the window. This isn't about us, James. It's about saving 8 billion people. I know. But we're going to be working together for the next 2.5 weeks, and I can't keep pretending there isn't history between us. She finally looked at him, and he saw tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. You chose your career. You said the diplomatic corps needed you more than I did. So you went to Andromeda Station for 3 years and I stayed here. What is there to say about that? That I was wrong. That I was an idiot. That I've regretted it every single day since. Well, congratulations on your self-awareness. Her voice was bitter. Now can we focus on the actual crisis? James nodded, accepting the rebuke. They spent the next hour going over tactical scenarios, carefully professional, maintaining the distance that had defined their relationship for 5 years. But as they worked, James noticed little things. The way Yuki bit her lip when she was concentrating just like she used to. The faint scent of jasmine perfume that she still wore. The occasional moment when their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them. The first contact with the Krillian fleet came 3 days later. James sat in the communication center, surrounded by linguists, cultural experts and military advisors. They'd studied the Vex records extensively, learning everything they could about Krillian psychology and communication protocols. When the Krillian commander's face appeared on the screen, James felt a chill run through him. The alien was humanoid but distinctly inhuman, with chitinous armor covering its body and multiple eyes that seemed to look through him rather than at him. I am War Leader Shaktis of the Krillian Collective, the alien said in a voice like grinding stone. You will submit to integration or be destroyed. These are your only options. James straightened his tie and smiled his most diplomatic smile. War Leader Shaktis, I am Ambassador James Okonkwo, representing the unified human government. We've received your message, but I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, human. Surrender or die. Perhaps, but we have certain cultural protocols that must be observed before any formal negotiations can begin. Surely the Krillian Collective, with its vast experience across the galaxy, understands the importance of proper diplomatic procedure. Shaktis's multiple eyes focused on him with what might have been curiosity. Explain? Well, first we must establish the parameters of our discussion. In human culture, any agreement between parties must be ratified by our governing body, which requires a minimum of 72 hours to convene and vote. Additionally, we must conduct proper cultural exchange to ensure mutual understanding. You attempt to delay the inevitable. Not at all, War Leader. We simply wish to ensure that any integration is conducted properly and with full understanding of both parties' expectations. Surely the collective would prefer willing cooperation to forced submission. Shaktis was silent for a long moment. Then, you have 48 hours to present your formal response. If you have not surrendered by then, we will begin bombardment of your outer colonies. The channel closed. James slumped in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. 48 hours? General Morrison said. That's less than we need. Then we'll have to ask for an extension, James replied. Schedule another call for tomorrow. I'll think of something. Over the following days, James engaged in the most critical negotiation of his life. He used every trick in the diplomatic playbook. Cultural relativism, procedural delays, requests for clarification, appeals to honor and tradition. The Krillians didn't care about any of it, but each conversation bought a few more hours. Yuki watched these exchanges from the tactical center, coordinating Earth's defenses while the quantum cascade array slowly charged. The Vex weapon was a marvel, but it was also dangerous. If they activated it before it was fully charged, it might destabilize and destroy Earth's sun. If they waited too long, the Krillians would destroy Earth's defenses. It was during one of these tense waiting periods that James found Yuki alone in one of the facility's gardens. She was sitting on a bench, staring at nothing, her usual composure finally cracking. 47 installations, she said without looking up. We've been building them for 30 years, ever since we decoded those first ancient warnings. Hidden defense platforms disguised as asteroids and debris. Everyone thought we were paranoid. James sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. You were right. You've always been right about the important things. Doesn't matter now. Even with all our preparations, we might not be enough. She finally turned to look at him. James, I'm scared. Not of dying. Of losing everyone again. Again? When you left for Andromeda Station, I lost you. Then my father died while you were gone and you weren't there. I learned to live with being alone. But now, facing this. Her voice broke. I don't want to die alone, James. I don't want to spend my last days maintaining this professional distance because we're both too proud to admit we still care. James took her hand. It felt like coming home. Yuki, about before, I know. Duty, honor, the greater good. All of it. She squeezed his fingers. But James, if we survive this, I want to try again. I want us to try. When we survive this, he corrected. Not if. She leaned against him and they sat in silence as the sun set over Geneva. In orbit above them, the quantum cascade array pulsed with building energy. Across the solar system, 47 hidden defense platforms powered up their weapons. And in the darkness beyond Mars, the Krillian fleet continued its inexorable advance. The next morning brought a new crisis. Captain Marcus Webb and Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived from the Meridian's Hope, carrying additional Vex data they'd extracted from the installation. There's something you need to see, Elena said, pulling up a holographic display. The Vex archives contain detailed battle logs from their war with the Krillians. We've been studying them and we found something important. She activated a simulation showing a massive space battle. Vex ships, sleek and powerful, faced off against a Krillian armada. The Vex had superior technology, better weapons, faster ships. And they were losing. The Krillians don't care about casualties, Marcus explained. They just keep coming. For every ship the Vex destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Vex called them the Eternal Swarm. How did the Vex stop them? James asked. They didn't, Elena said quietly. Not really. The quantum cascade arrays bought them time to transcend, to leave physical form behind. But the Krillians never stopped. They just moved on to other targets. Yuki studied the simulation with a tactician's eye. So even with the array we might only be buying time. Unless we do something the Vex never did, Elena continued. The Vex fought defensively. They tried to protect their worlds, their people. But humans, we have a different option. Offense, General Morrison said, understanding immediately. You want to take the fight to them. Marcus nodded. The Vex archives contain the location of the Krillian homeworld. It's 300 light-years from here, but with the Vex slipstream technology, we could reach it in weeks. You're talking about an extinction-level assault? James said carefully. Genocide. I'm talking about survival, Marcus replied. The Krillians won't stop coming. Not unless we give them a reason to fear us. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for the moral high ground, for defending Earth without becoming monsters themselves. Others pointed out that the Krillians had exterminated dozens of species, that they would continue to do so unless someone stopped them permanently. In the end, the decision came down to James. As the senior diplomat present, he had the authority to approve or reject the proposal. We defend first, he said finally. We use the quantum cascade array to stop the fleet approaching Earth. But we prepare a strike force to take the fight to their homeworld. If they survive our defenses and refuse to negotiate, then we show them that humanity doesn't just defend. We retaliate. The plan was set. Yuki would command the defense platforms and the quantum array. James would make one final attempt at negotiation. And Marcus would lead a strike force to the Krillian homeworld, carrying enough firepower to crack a planet. The night before the Krillian fleet arrived, James found Yuki on the observation deck. She was watching the stars, her expression unreadable. I've been thinking about what you said, James began. About trying again? Now? With everything happening tomorrow? Especially now, he moved closer. Yuki, I spent 5 years thinking my career was more important than us. I was wrong. And if tomorrow goes badly, if this is our last night, I don't want to waste it pretending there isn't something here worth fighting for. She turned to face him and he saw tears on her cheeks. You idiot. You absolute idiot. I know. You can't just show up after 5 years and, he kissed her. She stiffened for a moment, then melted into him, her hands coming up to grip his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear again. When they broke apart, she was crying and laughing at the same time. We're going to survive this, she said fiercely. We're going to stop them, and then you're going to spend the next 50 years making up for being an idiot. Is that a promise or a threat? Both. They spent the night together, making up for lost time, pretending for a few hours that the universe wasn't about to throw 500 warships at Earth. In the morning they'd return to their duties, to the impossible task of defending humanity against an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. But tonight, they had each other. When dawn came, Yuki kissed him one last time and headed to the tactical center. James went to the communication room, preparing for what would likely be his final negotiation with war leader Shakthis. The Krillian fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Mars' orbit. They were magnificent and terrible, 500 ships each the size of a city, armed with weapons capable of sterilizing a planet. James opened a channel. War leader Shakthis, I have a final message from humanity. The Krillian commander appeared on screen, his multiple eyes gleaming with anticipation. You will surrender now or we begin the bombardment. No, James said simply. We won't surrender. But I want you to understand something before this begins. Humans have a saying, don't mistake kindness for weakness. We've tried to negotiate because that's who we are. But if you force us to fight, you'll discover what we're capable of. Shakthis laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Empty threats, human. We have destroyed species far more advanced than yours. Then let me show you why you shouldn't have come here. James nodded to Yuki. Across the solar system, 47 hidden defense platforms dropped their camouflage and lit up with power. Targeting lasers painted every Krillian ship. And at the heart of the system, the quantum cascade array reached full charge. You're surrounded, James said. Every one of your ships is targeted. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. Shakthis' expression changed from arrogance to shock. Impossible. Our sensors detected no. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, war leader. We're very good at hiding. Now, are you going to leave or do we have to show you what happens when you threaten our home? For the first time in recorded Krillian history, war leader Shakthis hesitated. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes watched her husband through the reinforced observation window of Sentinel-7's reactor chamber. Dr. Adrian Cross was recalibrating the quantum resonator, his hands steady despite knowing what came next. They'd been married 3 years, stationed together on Sentinel-7 for the last 18 months, ever since the Vex installation had been towed into position near the sun. The Krillian fleet will be in optimal firing range in 6 minutes, Sophia said through the intercom, her voice professionally calm despite the fear twisting in her gut. Adrian looked up and smiled at her, that same gentle smile that had made her fall in love with him during their graduate studies at MIT. Then we'd better hurry. Sentinel-7 wasn't just Earth's most advanced defense platform. It was humanity's desperate gamble, built from a combination of human engineering and Vex technology. The quantum cascade array that had been discovered in the Kuiper Belt was powerful, but the Vex archives had revealed something else. A way to focus that power into a directed weapon rather than an area of effect blast. The problem was that it required 2 operators working in perfect synchronization, their minds linked through a neural interface that would almost certainly kill them both. The human brain wasn't designed to process the kind of quantum calculations required to aim a weapon that could fold spacetime itself. But Sophia and Adrian had volunteered anyway because that's what you did when your species faced extinction. I wish we'd had more time, Sophia said, entering the chamber. Her hands shook as she took her position opposite Adrian at the control interface. They'd known this day might come since they'd been assigned to Sentinel-7, but knowing and facing it were 2 different things. We had enough, Adrian replied, reaching across the console to take her hand. 3 years of waking up next to you. 3 years of your terrible cooking and my bad jokes. 3 years of building a life together. That's more than some people get in a lifetime. Sophia laughed despite the tears starting to form. My cooking isn't that bad. Baby, you burned water once. Actual water. That was one time. They'd met during the chaos following first contact, when Earth had simultaneously discovered alien life and learned it was about to be invaded. Sophia had been designing weapon systems, Adrian had been working on the theoretical physics behind the Vex technology. They'd collaborated on a paper about quantum cascade mechanics, spent 18 hours straight arguing about field harmonics in a coffee shop, and somewhere around hour 12, fallen completely in love. That their wedding had been small, held in Adrian's family garden in California with 50 of their closest friends and family. Sophia's mother had cried through the entire ceremony. Adrian's father had given a speech about love being humanity's greatest invention. It had been perfect that now they stood together in a reactor chamber designed to channel the power of a star, preparing to save the world and lose each other. That the Krillian flagship appeared on their tactical displays, leading the massive fleet toward Earth. After Ambassador Okonkwo's ultimatum, war leader Shaktis had made a choice: attack. The Krillians didn't retreat, didn't negotiate, didn't surrender. They fought until they won or died. Earth's defense platforms had opened fire first, their hidden positions giving them a critical advantage. The battle had been raging for 2 hours, and the humans were holding their own. General Morrison's tactical brilliance and Dr. Tanaka's careful planning were paying off. But the Krillians kept coming, accepting catastrophic casualties to push forward. That's when the order came: activate Sentinel-7. Sophia, Adrian, Yuki. Tanaka's voice came through their helmets. The fleet is breaking through Sector 7. We need the cascade weapon now. Copy that, command, Sophia replied. Initiating neural link sequence. She looked at Adrian one more time before they began. I love you. I need you to know that. Through everything you've been my constant. My home. I love you too, Adrian said. In this life and whatever comes after. They placed their hands on the interface panels. The neural link activated, and suddenly Sophia could feel Adrian's mind touching hers. It was intimate beyond anything physical, beyond words. She felt his love for her, warm and steady as a heartbeat. She felt his fear, not of death but of leaving her alone. She felt his determination to see this through. And he felt all of it from her too. Together, their minds merged with the quantum cascade array. Suddenly they could see the entire solar system spread out before them like a vast holographic map. They could feel the power of the sun flowing through the weapon, enormous and terrible and beautiful. They could sense the Krillian ships, each one a distinct node in spacetime. The calculations began. Human minds weren't meant to process quantum mathematics at this scale, but Sophia and Adrian had trained for this. They'd spent months in simulation, preparing their consciousness for this moment. It hurt, God, it hurt, like trying to think in dimensions that didn't exist, like trying to count infinity. But they did it together. Sophia handled the targeting arrays, her engineering background letting her track each enemy vessel with precision. Adrian managed the quantum field harmonics, his theoretical knowledge translating abstract math into reality. Their thoughts flowed together, no longer two separate people but one unified consciousness. On Earth, Yuki watched her tactical display with horror and hope. The Krillian breakthrough in Sector 7 was collapsing, ships disappearing as Sentinel-7's power built. On Mars, Marcus Webb held Elena Vasquez as they watched the battle unfold from the Meridian's hope. In Geneva, James Okonkwo stood in the war room, his hand clutching his phone with Yuki's last message: tell them we love them. Inside Sentinel-7, Sophia and Adrian existed in a space beyond normal consciousness. They saw their first date at the academy, laughing over physics equations. Their wedding day, Adrian fumbling with the ring. Lazy Sunday mornings in their quarters, making breakfast and planning impossible futures. Every moment they'd shared, compressed into a single eternal instant. Ready? Sophia asked, though her thoughts and Adrian's were so intertwined that the question came from both of them. Always? They answered together. They released the weapon. Space folded. The quantum cascade array discharged 50 years' worth of solar energy in a single pulse, focused and directed by two minds working as one. The effect rippled through spacetime like dropping a stone into still water, except the water was reality itself. The Krillian fleet didn't explode. It didn't burn or shatter. It simply ceased to exist. 500 capital ships, each one home to thousands of soldiers, folded out of normal space and into quantum probability. Here and not here, existing and not existing, scattered across dimensions that had no name in any human language. War leader Shaktis had time for one final thought before the cascade took him. These humans are not prey. They are hunters. Then he was gone, along with his entire armada. On Earth, every sensor array went dark for 3 seconds as the quantum pulse washed over the planet. When they came back online, the tactical displays showed empty space where the Krillian fleet had been. Target destroyed, an officer reported, his voice shaking. All enemy vessels, gone. Yuki stared at the display, not quite believing it. They'd won. Earth had survived. But the victory felt hollow as she looked at the readouts from Sentinel. 7. The platform was dark. Silent. The neural feedback from the quantum discharge had been catastrophic. Get rescue teams to Sentinel-7 immediately, she ordered, though she already knew what they would find. Marcus and Elena took the Meridian's Hope out to the platform, arriving before the military vessels. They found Sentinel-7 intact but lifeless, its reactor cooling, its systems shutting down one by one. In the central chamber, they found Sophia and Adrian. They were still holding hands across the interface console, peaceful smiles on their faces. The neural link had burned out their higher brain functions the moment they'd fired the weapon, but something in their final expression suggested they'd gone willingly, together, knowing what they were saving. Elena wept. Marcus held her, his own eyes wet with tears. They'd never met the couple in person, but they'd read their personnel files, seen their wedding photos, knew their story. They were just kids, Elena said. 32 and 34. They should have had decades together. They did what we all would have done, Marcus replied quietly. They chose to save the people they loved. The funeral was held a week later with full military honors. Sophia and Adrian were buried together in a single casket, their hands still entwined. Representatives from every human colony attended. Children who would now grow up safe because of their sacrifice left flowers and drawings. Sophia's mother sobbed through the entire ceremony. Adrian's father gave a speech about love being worth dying for. Yuki Tanaka and James Okonkwo stood together at the graveside, holding hands. They'd been given a second chance that Sophia and Adrian never got. James had already submitted his resignation from the diplomatic corps. He and Yuki were getting married next month, a small ceremony with just family and close friends. We have to make it count, Yuki whispered as they watched the casket being lowered. They gave us tomorrow. We have to make it mean something. We will, James promised. Across the solar system, humans returned to their lives. The threat had passed, but Earth had changed. The secret defense platforms were revealed to the public. The Vex technology became humanity's stepping stone to the stars. And the story of Sophia Reyes and Adrian Cross became legend, a reminder of what humans would sacrifice for those they loved. In the archives of the Vex installation, now renamed the Sophia and Adrian Memorial Station, researchers discovered one final message from the ancient civilization. It had been overlooked before, hidden in a secondary database. To whoever finds this, we left you weapons because we thought survival required power. But we were wrong. We transcended because we forgot what made life worth living. You have something we lost, the ability to love more than you fear. Cherish it. It is the only weapon that truly matters. Marcus read the message to Elena in their quarters on the Meridian's Hope. They'd decided to stay in space, running cargo and exploration missions, but now they did it together. He'd proposed to her a week after the battle, and she'd said yes without hesitation. Do you think the Vex understood? Elena asked. At the end, do you think they realized what they'd lost? I think that's why they left the message, Marcus replied. A warning and a hope. Don't become like us. Don't forget how to love. We won't, Elena said, kissing him softly. Humans are too stubborn for that. On Earth, construction began on a monument to the battle. At its center stood two statues, Lieutenant Sophia Reyes and Dr. Adrian Cross, holding hands, looking up at the stars. The inscription read, "They gave everything so that we could have tomorrow. Let us make tomorrow worthy of their gift." And humanity did. The species that had survived extinction events and ice ages, that had split the atom and walked on the moon, that had faced an ancient alien empire and won, now turned its attention to the stars with renewed purpose. Not as conquerors like the Krillians, not as transcendent beings like the Vex, but as humans, flawed, passionate, willing to sacrifice everything for those they loved. Embassies were established with other species. Trade routes opened across the galaxy. And whenever humans met other civilizations, they told the story of Sophia and Adrian, of Marcus and Elena, of James and Yuki. They told the story of how humans had faced annihilation and chosen love over fear, sacrifice over survival at any cost. The Krillian collective never returned to human space. War leader Shakti's final transmission, cut off mid-broadcast, had been enough. The message spread across the galaxy. Earth was protected. Humans were not prey. They were something else entirely, something dangerous and beautiful and worth respecting. In a small apartment in New Chicago, a child asked her mother about the war. "Were you scared?" the little girl asked. "When the aliens came?" The mother, who had been a young soldier during the battle, knelt down to her daughter's level. "Yes, sweetheart. We were all scared. But do you know what happened? People fought. Yes, but more than that. People loved. They loved each other enough to be brave. They loved us, the people who would come after, enough to sacrifice everything. And because of that love, you're here asking me questions. You're safe. You have a future. What happened to the people who loved us? Some of them died, baby. But they're not gone. They're in every sunrise we get to see, every dream we get to dream. They're in you, in the world they saved. The little girl thought about this. Then, when I grow up, I want to be like them. That's good, her mother said, pulling her close. The galaxy needs more people who know how to love. And so the story passed from generation to generation, a reminder of humanity's finest hour. Not when they built the greatest weapons or conquered the most worlds, but when they faced extinction and chose to love anyway. In the endless dark between stars, ancient Vex consciousness watched, and if such beings could smile, they smiled. They had left behind weapons, but humanity had taught them something new. Weapons were just tools. Love was the real power. And that power, once understood, was unstoppable. The end.